So Matthew, I'm sure you've heard of this one, but I'm not sure if everyone listening has. And I realized I made a reference to it in our episode talking to Wendy. I didn't explain what this was. So I'm like, okay, I'll explain it maybe here in the intro. So have you heard the thing? There was this viral debate that went on TikTok.
Basically, it's like, do you have TikTok on your phone? Step one.
Well, I don't. And I've still heard all about it and everything.
It's been making waves. So what is it, Jack? What is this thing?
It was about saying that a woman saying they would rather be alone in the woods with a bear rather than a man. Or if they're out in the woods, would they rather run into a bear or a man? I don't know exactly how it was phrased. Something like that.
And so what were people picking? Surely they would pick a man, right? That seems safe, no?
It was 90+%. Oh, I'd rather meet a bear. Things like, at least you know what to predict. You know what you're getting out of the bear.
Guys, it's an indictment of where we are in today's society.
It was interesting because we talked with Wendy McHenry today. If you don't know what Wendy, I'll mention her background and everything in just a minute, but she leads up our Women's in Solution Excellence chapter with Presales Collective. So we were talking all about kind of the current environments that we are in sales. And it's 2025. And she said it was currently even 18% of Salesforce's men. And that might actually even be high by what we're seeing today. And talking all about that, which made me think of this analogy, which is, listen, men listening to this, you might not like that women are picking the bear, but they are. And why is that? Maybe think about why that is. And have we set up society in a way? Is it set up in a way, are our teams even, that's supposed to be a safe place that you work, is it set up in a way that is welcoming and inviting? And I don't know, it should make you stop and think, and potentially you should be uncomfortable with it a little bit.
Here's something that I've seen closer to home in our sales solutions engineering communities. I go on LinkedIn and I see posts of, here are the top 10, here are the top 15 people you should be following in sales right now. And it's a list of 10 dudes. And maybe there's a woman in there. Sometimes I've seen these lists where there is not a single woman in there. And I think you could apply the same thinking to other kinds of underrepresented demographics. Today, we're focusing on a conversation about whys. So that's kind of a litmus test that I have seen that says we can still work on this and get to a more equitable world.
I mean, there's still a lot of work to be done. And we get into the episode, we just finished talking to Wendy about all the different biases that are there and some steps that you can take today to start making some type of a change and at least bringing that awareness to your organization. For those of you who don't know Wendy, a little bit about her. So Wendy McHenry she's kind of a champion for equity in organizations. She's been the chair of our Women's in Solutions Excellence chapter at Presales Collective for the past 3 years. Deep commitment to mentoring, community leadership. She's been most recently building the pre-sales and customer success teams at CDATA as the head of global solutions engineering. I met her when she was leading pre-sales at Pegasystems. Fantastic person to know. Just spoke at Presales Collective's conference, SoulCon East. Actually led a workshop just this last week, which by the time this episode's out, it's a couple weeks ago, but for us is literally last week when we're recording this. Great conversation with Wendy. So excited to have her on the show.
Yeah, it was really awesome. And I just have to double down on that workshop. Really amazing. I've got a notebook full of takeaways. So we couldn't have gotten someone better to talk about this topic today other than Wendy.
Absolutely. I don't want to waste any more of anyone's time listening to us babble back and forth about it. Let's get into the episode with Wendy right after the break. Ever wish Salesforce was actually designed for pre-sales? You're not alone. Salesforce focuses on the commercial side, while pre-sales teams and technical opportunity management are often left behind. That's why they built Elvance, the Salesforce native platform created specifically for high-performing pre-sales teams. With Elvance, you can track technical progress, manage capacity, surface product gaps, and forecast with confidence. From intelligent resource scheduling to AI-powered opportunity scorecards, Elvance gives you the clarity and control to move faster and win smarter. And it works exactly where the rest of your teams already do, right inside your Salesforce CRM. Rated 5-star on G2 and the Salesforce App Exchange, pre-sales consultants love how intuitive it is and the time it saves them, and leaders love the visibility and strategic insights it brings. So if you're ready to stop fighting your CM and start getting real value from it, head to elvance.io to learn more. That's elvance.io. Wendy McHenry, welcome to the Pre-Sales Podcast.
Hi, Jack. Thanks so much for having me today. I love this podcast and I'm excited to be in this conversation today.
Well, Matthew and I are very excited to have you here. I know we've been talking about this for a long time. I think we decided something back in like March or April that we wanted to have you on the show, if I remember correctly.
That's right.
And especially lucky because we were just coming off of SoulCon East, which was a great time for everyone who could make it to New York. And Wendy led an amazing session, an amazing workshop, but no spoilers on that. So look out for all the recap posts.
Yeah, it was a fantastic session. Thank you so much for doing that.
Oh, it was so much fun. And I loved how many conversations we're having after SoulCon. So this is great to have this podcast today, keep the conversation going, and always happy to talk about SoulCon, anything.
Today, we're going to talk a little bit about WISE. I know we had, for those who were at SoulCon, we kind of did a mini like, hey, at lunch, come and sit down at the WISE table, which I think we had about a dozen women there. WISE standing for Women in Solutions Excellence, which I believe I got right there. Talk to me a little bit about WISE. When did it get started? Why is it a part of Presales Collective? And how are you involved?
So first of all, WISE is for anyone who cares about supporting, advancing women in solutions careers. So first of all, I just wanted to shout out why WISE exists. How WISE exists is it actually came from an ERG, an employee resource group at Salesforce, supporting women in solutions roles at Salesforce. And when Presales Collective was founded, our founders were wise enough to bring that similar effort over to Presales Collective.
I see what you did there.
You like that shout out? So I have been a part of the WISE Council since its inception, roughly at Presales Collective. We are made up of volunteers who are both our council leaders, and then we also have our advisors, including one of the original WISE founders at Salesforce, Kate McArdle, who has been a wonderful mentor to me. And I have been chair and co-chair of WISE for the last 3 years now already. And I spend a lot of time both in Presales Collective and in my day job speaking with solutions professionals, solutions leaders, people who are trying to support solutions leaders like CEOs about how they can do similar efforts at their company. So for some companies that actually are fortunate enough to have their own WISE chapter, and then at Presales Collective, we can be your WISE chapter if you do not have one at your own company. And then WISE offers not only opportunities to network with other solutions professionals, but the opportunity to learn, career development opportunities, connections with others. For example, I've met with many women over the years who are new to the solutions profession. And it's a very exciting time to get involved in WISE. I was so excited to have so many great conversations about our efforts at SoulCon, and anyone on our council is always happy to chat about WISE.
So am I understanding it right? It kind of began at Salesforce and then it was spun out. And now you are leading WISE, and there are some individual chapters at some companies, and also people can come and be directly affiliated with kind of like the central WISE org.
That's correct. We are actually. And what is so great about that? So first of all, why is it important that WISE exists? The statistics that Presales Collective has on the number of women and women identifying members in solutions careers globally sits at 18%, only 18%.
That's still low.
Right. It's very low. And so part of our mission is to actually grow that number and bring more women into the solutions field. So what happens, Matthew, through my journey, I mean, a lot of women who say, I'm the only woman on my SE team. So they come to us for that support and networking and, again, career development to help ensure that their career is advancing, that they're getting the tools and skills to advance.
I appreciate you bringing that up because I think that that is still a very common thing that I have seen and that I have heard from my women coworkers. And I'm just curious if you have anything more to say when people bring that up. What are the feelings associated with that? And what's your experience been?
So certainly it does bring up a lot of emotion, right? It can be, in the beginning of my career, intimidating to walk into a room where I'm the only woman. I think there is, if you've heard the phrase, unconscious bias towards women in technology roles in general. And something that WISE can do is help educate us all on that unconscious bias, help educate us on the strengths that women can bring into the role. So for example, we are exceptional relationship builders, right? I also read a statistic today, and I'm so sorry, I don't remember who said the statistic, but actually, I think it was Cynthia Barnes, the founder of National Association of Women Sales Professionals, who said when women are in sales, they have 11% higher win rates right there. That's a great reason to hire a woman in sales. And for me, over time, in 2025, I'll still walk into a meeting and I'll say, are you serious? Am I really the only woman in here? But I started to see it as my superpower because, first of all, everyone in that room knows my name when I walk in the room. But secondly, I have the power then to do something about it, to enact change, to bring other women along with me, to help educate everyone in the room on the importance and understanding what's happening and make them realize, hey, you're right, Wendy is the only woman in here, and maybe there's something we can do to change that. So that has been my mission. The last 9 years, I've done a lot of this kind of advocacy work. And so I was very excited to get involved with Presales Collective because I'm very passionate about supporting women in tech roles. I have heard some unfortunate stories, not anyone in our group, right? But from people who face some difficult challenges in their roles. And that's something that I think is so great that this group can help support people through those challenges and then hopefully help create environments, all of our leaders in Presales Collective, create environments that are welcoming and inclusive.
I think that's the key, right? It's up to leadership to kind of make the change. I've had a few conversations about this with people, and I've said about that 18% number that's crazy if you think about, because women are 50% of the population of the world. And so anytime you see a significant difference in percentage, it's one of two things. Either women are less qualified to be in the role, or there's a bias keeping them out of the role. Or it's for some reason a role that is set up in a way, or the environment is set up in a way where women don't want to be in the role. I guess so I suppose it's three things. So unless you are actually saying, no, that's not the case, like women are not less qualified, then there are things, either it's our environment or it's the biases that we have that are making it so that women, for whatever reason, are either not applying for the role at your job or you are overlooking because of that. And that's something that is difficult to hear because we all want to feel like that's not my environment, that's not my team, that's not my bias, but it's still out there. It's still something you need to be aware of, and it's something you need to take into consideration when you're hiring, when you're looking at placing people on your team. Are you set up in a way where you are overlooking the most qualified candidates because of things that you've preconceived about how women can be in sales?
Right. And I would encourage everyone who's listening, if you see that bias happening, call it out. So for example, I was on an interview panel and we were interviewing a woman and it was for an SE role. And all of the other people on the interview panel were men. And they made a comment about this candidate. And I stopped them and I said, would you have said that about this person if she was a man? And I challenged their thinking. But that's what needs to be happening if you're witnessing this. So for example, another common bias I hear, and I get asked by SE candidates this all the time, the criticism that, well, you're not technical enough. And I don't quite understand why that bias is there. And then what happens is I see a lot of women internalize that bias themselves. And then they think I'm not technical enough. And we've had these conversations at WISE about overcoming that internal dialogue. And I think we hopefully will have some future programming about that as well, how to overcome that. But again, if you met a man with those qualifications, would you say that same thing?
I've not personally experienced this, but I have talked to others who have with that specific statement, you're not technical enough, or it's even a little bit further where the hiring is being done because they want to hire someone who will be perceived as more technical. Like that's actually what they internally say.
So it's like a double bias.
Yeah, it's not even that. It's when they're looking at someone who may be a very technically, like might be the most technically qualified person who is a woman, but because they're a woman, they might not be perceived as technical. And this person has to be perceived as technical. Like you allow yourself to hire because of the bias you think others will have. And so we're almost doubling down now on that. And so you have to really be calling that out. Like, don't assume the people you're going to be selling to are going to think that. Let's not do that.
I actually am really glad you said that because it brings up a great point to think about. Okay, if we're 18% women, think about what our clients look like. If you walk in there with no women, I remember going to a client meeting with their tech team. Their leader was a woman and the only woman. And my team, I was the leader and I was the only woman. And we looked at each other across the room and we were like, yep, this is what's happening.
There was like almost a silent sort of connection.
Exactly. Camaraderie. But honestly, it looks weird to your client If you don't look like them, they clock it, even if you don't realize they are. And honestly, I think that it's something we don't even realize we're doing because it's an unconscious bias. But again, by having these conversations and bringing it top of mind, it's something we can be more mindful of when we're planning account teams, when we're planning interview panels. I remember I had a company I interviewed with, it's a true story, for an SE leader role. I interviewed with 22 men and 1 woman, and the woman I interviewed with was the sales leader. After they hired me, I let them know, I was like, hey, this was not a great candidate experience. Here are some suggestions for how we can build a better interview panel for future roles. So when you see that something isn't working as well as it should, say something and help them move it in a more constructive direction.
So we've talked about these really compelling statistics. 18% of solutions professionals are women today. And I think that it's really powerful to also remind ourselves of that. You said, I think sales professionals that are women have an 11% higher close rate. So we have this gap. We've talked a little bit about some of these issues, unconscious bias, especially in hiring. What other layers are there to the problem before we move on to how WISE is approaching how we move forward?
Honestly, the last thing I'll add to that, Matthew, I have been personally just concerned about the number of women leaving the profession in recent years, either through layoffs or personal choice to move to a different role. I don't have statistics on that. Jack, that would be interesting to see if we could find that out. I personally feel sad every time a woman leaves pre-sales. So for example, let's say there was a layoff and HR was really mindful that 50% were male identifying and 50% were female identifying. I feel like that 50% of women will hurt women more because there's fewer of us. I think it takes more effort to bring women into the profession. I mean, Jack, you mentioned a concern about how it feels to be on the team and in that environment. And some women are going to be like, no, thanks.
That's a tough one. I'm thinking about that from a layoffs perspective, right? It's interesting how we don't enforce hiring 50% of women, but we'll enforce laying 50% of them off, right? We're just making the problem worse.
It's a good point.
And you're right. Like I've been on sales teams that have been all men and 1 or 2 women. And I've always looked at those women and I said, kudos to you for being here. Like, I feel like that's got to feel difficult from a work environment perspective. Sometimes it's been fine, right? That where sales leaders have been very aware of the situation. Other times, zero lack of awareness where it's sort of like, well, this is now a boys club mentality has taken over. And I'm like, I'm uncomfortable. Even as a male, I'm uncomfortable in some of these conversations that we're having.
Right. Well, think about this, right? So think about then that team going out for like a happy hour. Maybe the women don't feel comfortable and then they're missing out on some of that time for connection and career development. I did once have a woman on my team come to me and say, Wendy, I'm not comfortable going to a bar, even though our team was more equally distributed, but it brought to my attention, oh, I need to make sure I'm planning other activities that don't include alcohol to be more welcoming and inclusive. But I hadn't thought about it until she said something to me. So it's creating, as a leader, what kind of team environment do you want to have? I certainly know I don't really want to go somewhere where I don't know people and it's a bunch of men I don't know. Not that, I have many incredible male colleagues like the two of you. So, unconscious bias can go both ways. But just saying, it is intimidating as a woman to go into an environment with all these men and alcohol present.
We've had that problem at Presales Collective, actually. We face this all the time when we're having our dinners and our mixers and different events. Well, we don't have too many different events. Actually, right now, it's mostly those two, right? Dinner, where there will be food and alcohol, and mixers, where it's primarily alcohol. I have gotten the feedback, hey, we're not seeing as many women because they don't want to travel downtown to a room that they know will be 95% male. And it can be intimidating or be a non-welcoming environment as well. So it's something that we're actually being pretty conscious of. We're expanding the types of offerings and events we're going to do next year because of that. And we've actually, Wendy, we've worked with you like every time we have a dinner, we're like, hey, please try and find women in Boston or San Francisco because we want them to know, hey, if you go, Jack, who's hosting, is well aware that this needs to be a welcoming environment, and he's doing everything he can to try to make it welcoming.
Right. And then sometimes they'll call another woman and ask them to go with them. Also, for example, at SoulCon, I honestly, every night found another woman, hey, let's share an Uber together. That's the kind of camaraderie that women have that I don't think men realize, like men don't think about those things.
It's less necessary to think about those things, unfortunately. That's the society that we're in. It's the whole man or a bear when you're caught in the forest thing, which is a very real realization that a lot of women, rightfully so, have reason to worry about being in a situation where they're not safe, which is an unfortunate statement to still have to make in 2025, but this is where we're at. And it needs to be acknowledged. As much as we want to think we've progressed a lot in our society, and we have in many ways, we're still not there. We're still not there. Things are not solved by any stretch of the imagination, both on the how well we hire and get our hiring bias out, as well as how comfortable our environments just are for women. It's a lot more comfortable to be male identifying in our culture than it is to be woman identifying.
So, Wendy, how is WISE helping women move forward and helping us all, I guess, create a more equitable world so that we can actually do two things, right? Because there's always this conversation of like, why should we do this? And I think that one, there's the like empirical evidence. It's like, yes, your organization will actually benefit from those higher close rates. But then I think two, there is the idea that like, this is just the right thing to do. And I think putting both of those two things out there is important. So tell us a little bit about some of the initiatives that WISE is moving forward with.
Sure. So first of all, something I love about WISE is it is open to everyone, and we encourage allies to attend. And secondly, I also think a lot of allies are like, what does allyship mean? What can I do? And it's these things I've been trying to call out here, right? Like speaking up, for example. How do I show up? That's really what I get asked by a lot of allies, and then encouraging them to come and attend these events because they're for them as well, because we do offer suggestions and things like I just mentioned. So in terms of events, we have 3 pillars of events this year. We have networking events, so opportunities for connection with each other. Eventually, Jack and I hope those will start happening in person as well as virtual. We have our career development opportunities. So advancing your career skills, whether that's technical skills, business acumen skills, selling skills, personal development skills. And then also this year, we've added an arm for social impact because research has shown that people need to feel a sense of purpose and meaning in their work. And so if we can help provide that through some social impact work, then that's fantastic. Currently, our events are virtual. They're usually held once a month. And then I'm hoping that that can continue growing as Presales Collective continues to grow. We also have a Slack channel where I think anyone can join. If you're a Presales Collective member, Jack, yes, anyone can join the WISE channel. And you will see people will post questions about, okay, I'm in this situation. What do I do? And then the WISE Council, all of us are always happy to jump on a Zoom call with anyone. For example, I've been offering free career coaching to any person, whether they're women identifying or not. Anyone that has reached out the last 2.5 years, I am happy to jump on a call. So whether that's someone that's trying to break into pre-sales, whether that's a pre-sales leader that is hitting that glass ceiling, or whatever the topic might be, we're going to try to, and if I can't help them, connect them with someone that can. We have also added in each of those pillars of networking, career development, social impact, other members of the Presales Collective community who are helping to plan event ideas and things like that. So for example, in August, we had a great session on your LinkedIn profile and LinkedIn personal branding. Very, very useful session right now for all of us, not only for people that are job seekers, but right as we're representing ourselves to our clients, that's really important because they're going to be looking you up on LinkedIn. That was a really popular session. We're doing one in October. We'll be posting that one soon with Penelope Thompson and Diana Capello, who are both members of the WISE Council. They're going to be revisiting some of what they discussed at SoulCon West back in May. Also, great opportunities to learn from other really impressive solutions professionals, which is something I deeply love and something I think we all appreciated about SoulCon East. Jack, you called this out. The ability to be with other people where you don't have to explain what you do for a living sometimes is a really nice part of WISE. Just being with other people in the community, learning from them, and again, creating those personal connections.
So it sounds like these three pillars can also create a space for that same feeling that we have when we're in the room at SoulCon East. We have a shared context of all being in pre-sales. We don't have to explain that. And then it sounds like in these three pillars of WISE, that context goes even further. Like I'm a woman who's in pre-sales, and we get to share that context automatically without having to kind of dive through it and explain everything to start with.
Exactly. And also for people that do have WISE chapters at their companies, anyone that is a WISE leader there, we also will help them, because we often will get asked like, okay, what should we do? What kind of programs and ideas are helpful? And then we're learning about the types of things, the challenges that are unique in that company. Salesforce being still, of course, the largest chapter. I think they have over 1,000 members of the Salesforce chapter. Our Pega chapter, when I was at Pega, was over 100 when I was there.
Something I've seen as well with some WISE chapters, because sometimes you might be thinking, I'd love to do that. I'd love to start that at my company, which certainly Pre-Sales Collective's WISE chapter can help you with that. Definitely encourage you to do that if you're thinking about it. If you're thinking, you know what, I feel like it might be just too small just to focus on the solutions team, you can make it broader to sales, right? Just change that S to sales.
Right, exactly.
And you can make it a broader chapter to include sales, or find a way to include more your women in tech within your company, where it's very similar, slightly different feeling if you go outside of sales, but still find a way to create some type of a slice or a cutout that you can do. Because as your company grows, having that foundation there within your company can help to change some of the biases that we talked about, or at least make people more aware of being aware of them. Aware of being aware of them? Sure. We'll stick with that. I was like, where's this sentence going to go while I'm saying it? I think it's important. Don't worry about it. It might be too small to start. Find a way to make it maybe a little bit bigger and launch it. But again, Wendy and others in the Slack channel there in Pre-Sales Collective Slack can assist on how to get started, things you should consider. But you should do it. If you're listening to this right now and you're like, I wonder if I should, the answer is yes, you should do it.
And a suggestion for someone who might say, I think my company is too small, I don't have enough women here, but I really love this effort. We actually had our first regional chapter founded last year as Women in Solutions Consulting Australia and New Zealand. It's a regional chapter because at the companies, the presence of women is actually quite small. And when they were founded, I think they very quickly came to 50 members. We have different companies that host them, and they have met in person in Sydney, for example. And so that way, they're still able to do some of obviously the time zone challenges of Australia and New Zealand. I've been really hopeful that someday we would have a regional chapter in Europe. If you're interested in starting one in Europe, I'm looking for people. But that is another way to create a similar effect, even if you have not very many women at your existing company.
So have you had the chance to go and visit the Down Under chapter yet?
I have not, but Jack, I'm willing to go anytime you want to send me.
I think that you deserve a little fact-finding mission, and definitely go through some solidarity down there.
Yes. Do some research. Yes.
That's right. Some research. Yeah.
It might be a whole 2 weeks worth of research. Just has to happen.
SoulCon, Australia, New Zealand, I will totally go.
So Wendy, what is exciting you about what's happening right now? Or what is something that's going really well in this space?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I will say, I'm just going to caveat this by saying that there is a lot of doom and gloom in the news. A lot of companies are rolling back their DEI programs. So what is giving me a lot of excitement, first of all, are companies that are doubling down on their DEI initiatives like ServiceNow. I'm going to call them out and say thank you on behalf of Alice and Michaela, who just went and did a workshop there with them. I love that. So I appreciate companies that understand it's still very important. There are other companies that are rebranding their efforts into wellness groups. Totally fine, whatever you want to call it, same thing. But for me, what has energized me and our council, our WISE council here at Presales Collective, is actually a belief that our mission is more important than ever. Because if women do not have this type of support at their company, we can be that source of support for them. So that is really exciting to me. And it just means our work has become even more important.
I'm getting goosebumps just hearing you talk about it. Your passion is really coming through. And I totally agree, right? It's something that we should all be passionate about.
Yeah. I had no idea companies were kind of just rebranding. I love that starting. I guess we're rolling it back, but we're going to do the same thing. Just going to call it something different. Like, be resourceful, right? I love that. Just get in there and do it.
We're going to do it anyway. We'll call it whatever, the lunch club, whatever you want to call it. I appreciate the people that are still driving forward with that mission.
Absolutely. I think that it's more important to not be discouraged. And you're right. There's so much where you could feel like, well, it's not worth it. We're now rolling back 30 years of progress. Yeah, but doesn't mean you have to, right? You can hold on to it and you can decide, hey, I'm going to try and launch this thing. And while you might not have the corporate support to be a part of a DEI or ERG group anymore, you can still use your own time to do it, right? Like find a way to take this important thing and run with it. I love it.
There's so much research showing how much more productive companies are when they have diverse teams. And to me, diversity is also diversity of thought. So why wouldn't you want women on your team?
Yes. I remember taking a group of men to sell into a cosmetics company. And we all went, we're really maybe missing a critical piece of what they care about from their mission. Diversity of thought, 100% in every aspect. Absolutely. Let's do that. We're getting close to the end of our time together. Unfortunately, time flies when you're having fun, for sure. Before we do so, I asked 2 questions. I'll ask them one at a time. Wendy, first and foremost, if people want to get a hold of you, obviously we already talked about the Presales Collective Slack. If people want to get a hold of you, where can they find you? Can they talk to you more about this? Can they just set up time on your calendar? How do people get in touch with you?
I am always happy to open up my calendar for anyone who wants to talk about this subject. You can find me on the Presales Collective Slack, Wendy McHenry, or you can find me on LinkedIn at WendyMac98. So reach out to me. I'm always happy to connect, collaborate. And again, like we said, the whole WISE Council is also happy to help. So once I understand what you'd like to talk about, I'm happy to talk, but I'm also happy to make other introductions to the rest of the WISE Council, depending on the issue at hand.
Perfect. And last question, what's your thought you want to leave us all with? We talked about a lot of things. What's the one thing someone should walk away with this podcast episode remembering?
Oh my gosh, I hope this got you all really excited and eager to jump in and help support a woman's career growth. There's so much great opportunity here in the solutions field. It's continuing to expand and grow. And I'm excited to continue seeing what women's contributions will be in solutions. And I hope to see everyone at a WISE event soon.
Excellent. Well, Wendy, thank you so much for joining us on the Presales podcast. Matthew, as always, thank you for being my wonderful co-host here. And we'll see everyone in the next episode.
Thank you for having me. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the Presales podcast by Presales Collective. Did you know that we also post on the Presales Collective blog following each episode? Head there to read through information on shows you might have missed or find another past episode to listen to. For more information on the Presales podcast itself and to listen to those past episodes, visit presalescollective.com/podcast.